Everyone in that hearing room expected me to lose. Honestly, that was the fun part. The Lakehead Pack Trust holds arbitration in a converted grain office on Superior Street, which means the whole room smells like 100 years of dust and lake water, no matter how much lemon polish they throw at it. I got there 40 minutes early. I always do. You learn things in an empty room that you never learn in a full one, like which chair wobbles and which door the important people come through. They came through the north door, all three of them, at the same time, in the same coat. I want to be clear that I knew what triplets were before that morning. I had just never stood 8 feet from a set of them and felt my own brain quietly file a complaint. Same jaw, same dark blonde hair pushed back the same way. Same height, give or take the width of a dime. The scent hit a half-second later, cedar and cold iron. 3 sources braided so tight the room couldn't tell them apart either. Then they sat down, and the illusion fell apart in under a minute, because personalities do not come in matching sets. The one on the left folded his hands and looked at me the way you look at a math problem. That was August. The one on the right stayed standing until the arbitrator asked him twice to sit, and even then he did it like sitting was a favor he was doing the furniture. That was Roman. The one in the middle smiled at me, warm, easy, like we'd met at a wedding. That was Sawyer, and I decided immediately that he was the dangerous one. Mr. Holt, the arbitrator, a gray beta named Del Prager, who had been doing this since before I could read, tapped his pen. You've asked to halt a project that employs 1,100 people. Get to it. 1,104, I said. I like to be accurate. It's sort of the whole reason we're here. Roman made a sound in his throat. I opened my folder. 2 winters ago, the crane gantry at Pier 9 failed during a night shift. 10 injury claims were filed against the Brandt estate. All 10 were settled inside 19 days and sealed under a confidentiality clause that this trust is not permitted to open. I looked up 19 days. I have never in 6 years seen this pack settle anything in under 4 months, and I once watched them fight a man over a broken thermos for a year and a half. The thermos claim was fraudulent, August said without heat. The thermos claim was Gus Wendt, and he's dead now, so congratulations on the win. The room went very quiet. Del Prager did not tell me to sit down, which I noted. August turned a page. He had this stillness that made everything around him look jumpy by comparison. Speed is not concealment, Mr. Holt. We settled quickly because the men were hurt and winter was coming, and none of them could work. You are describing decency and calling it a crime. And here is the thing that made him worth the trip. He was right. That was a genuinely good answer, delivered without raising his voice, and half the room believed him. I watched it happen. Shoulders came down. Someone behind me exhaled. So I burned my own credibility on purpose. There were 11, I said. August's pen stopped. 10 claims were filed. 11 men were on that gantry. I slid the crew manifest across the table, and my hand was steady, which I was proud of, because the rest of me was not. The 11th never filed. The 11th has no medical record, no settlement, no signature anywhere in your paperwork. He came home. He slept for 2 days, and when he woke up, he couldn't tell me what happened on that pier. Not wouldn't. Couldn't. Like somebody took the night out of him and closed the hole behind it. Sawyer stopped smiling. That was the first real thing I got out of any of them. And it cost me everything I had left, because Del Prager was already reading the manifest and already finding the last name on it, which was mine. Holt, he said slowly. Milo Holt. My brother. Roman came up out of his chair. You've been running an audit on my family for 4 months, over your own kin, and you didn't disclose it. I disclosed it 11 seconds ago. You buried it. I did, I agreed, because the second I said his name, you'd all decide this was grief instead of evidence, and you'd have been half right, and I'd have gotten nothing. I let that sit. How am I doing so far? Roman's scent went hot and sharp, the way an alpha's does when he's furious and honest about it, and I made myself stay exactly where I was. Not because I'm brave, because the second an Omega steps back in a room like that, the rest of the conversation happens without him. Del Prager set the manifest down. I'm not halting the project, he said, and my stomach dropped through the floor. And I'm not dismissing the challenge either. He looked between us with the specific tiredness of a man who has run out of good options and is about to reach for an old one. I'm invoking custodial remedy. August's head came up. I have read the trust charter maybe 900 times. Custodial remedy is 4 paragraphs of 19th century pack law that nobody has used since 1971. When an Omega accuses a ruling household of concealment and neither side can be trusted alone with the records, the accuser lives inside that household for the duration of the audit. Both parties under one roof. Nothing moved, nothing shredded, nothing signed in the dark. Absolutely not, Roman said. That's a 100-year-old relic, August said. It's still law, Prager said. And me. I stood up so fast my chair barked against the floor, and I said it louder than any of them, because it was important that everybody in that room watch me hate it. You cannot put me in a house with them. Prager signed the order anyway. Outside, the wind coming off the lake was doing that thing it does in March where it feels personal. I got to my car, shut the door, and let my hands shake for exactly 1 minute. Then I got out my phone and deleted the draft of the custodial remedy petition I had written 6 weeks ago and never sent. I needed to be inside that house. I just couldn't be the one who asked. Because there is a thing I can do, and it only works while people are sleeping, and it only works close. Nobody knows that about me. Not the trust, not my supervisor, not Del Prager, and definitely not the 3 men who had just been ordered to give me a bedroom. It started when I was 9, and it has never once been useful in a way that made me feel good about it. I fall asleep near someone, and sometimes, not always, I end up standing inside whatever their mind is doing. I don't steer. I don't pick. I get what I get, the way you get weather. And every single time, when I wake up, something of mine is gone. Not a big thing, a small one. The name of a teacher, a phone number I used to know by heart. Last month, I lost the sound of my brother's laugh. I know he had one. I sat in my car for a while thinking about that. Somebody knocked on my window and I nearly came out of my skin. Sawyer Brandt was standing in the wind with his coat open like the lake was somebody else's problem. He made a little rolling motion with one finger. I put the window down 2 inches because I am petty. You can open it all the way, he said. I promise not to climb in. That's exactly what a person who climbs in would say. He laughed. It sounded real, which was the annoying part. Fair. Listen, my brothers are having a conversation in the parking lot about whether the charter allows them to appeal a 100-year-old law in under an hour. It does not. I already checked, twice, while you were still doing your thermos bit. It wasn't a bit. It was a little bit of a bit. He rested his forearm on the roof of my car. Up close, I could see the one thing that separated him from the others, a thin white scar running through his left eyebrow, and I filed it away like a hostage-taker memorizing exits. Follow me up. If you show up on your own, the housekeeper will call the county, and I'll spend my evening explaining you to a deputy. Do I get to know where I'm going? Ridgeline. Above the harbor. He straightened. Mr. Holt, the 11th name. Was that true? The wind pulled at his coat, and he didn't seem to notice. Look it up, I said. You've got the manifest. I know what's on the manifest. He tapped the roof twice and walked away, and I sat there with my heart going like a bird in a box, because he had not said the manifest was wrong. The drive up out of the harbor takes you through the part of Duluth the postcards skip, past the ore docks and the salt piles and the diners with hand-lettered signs, and then the road tilts and the whole lake opens up gray and enormous behind you. Their gate came up on the left, iron, no name on it. People who need a name on the gate are people you have never heard of. The house was long and low and older than it looked. Dark stone, windows facing the water like it was watching something. I parked behind Sawyer's truck with my one duffel bag in the back, and my dignity somewhere in the trunk. Roman was already on the steps. Of course he was. Nothing on the 4th floor, he said, before my door was fully shut. Hello to you too. I love what you've done with the greeting. Nothing on the 4th floor. He came down 2 steps. He was bigger up close, or he took up more room, which is not the same thing but lands the same way. You want the audit? Take the audit. Ledgers, payroll, incident logs, insurance. I'll carry the boxes down myself. You go up those stairs and I put you back in your car with my own hands. Is that a legal position or a personal one? Guess. See, this is the problem, I said, hauling my bag out. You keep telling me where not to look. It's very generous. Most people make me work for that. His jaw did something. I got the sense he wanted to say 6 things and had been told by a lawyer to say none of them, and that the lawyer was standing right behind him because August was in the doorway with a folder. 4 rules, August said. Do I get them in writing? You get them in writing. He held out the folder. He had changed nothing about himself since the hearing. Same stillness, same flat courtesy, and somehow that was more unnerving than Roman's temper. 1. You have access to every document you requested, and I will provide originals, not copies. 2. You do not speak to our employees about the gantry without one of us present, because those men are still on our payroll, and I will not have them frightened into agreeing with you. 3. You sleep in the East Wing. I looked up. Why does that need a rule? Because it's the only wing with heat that works. A pause you could have parked a car in. 4. If you find something, you bring it to me before you bring it to the trust. Absolutely not. I didn't say instead of, I said before. And what do you do with the head start? Whatever a person does, August said, when he learns his family hurt someone. That was not the answer I had built a wall against. I had a whole speech ready for stonewalling, and none of it fit a man who just stood there holding a door open in the cold. I took the folder. The East Wing smelled like cedar and old radiator dust. My room had a bed, a desk, a window with the harbor lights coming on below, and a chair that somebody had clearly moved out of somewhere else in a hurry. I set my bag down. I checked the closet, because I check things. Empty except for 4 wooden hangers and a single dried sprig of something in the corner that had probably been there since a previous decade. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and listened. Here is what nobody tells you about a house full of alphas. You can hear them the way you hear a train 2 streets over. Not sound exactly, just the fact of something heavy and moving. Water knocking in a pipe on the far side of the wall. A door closing 3 rooms down. A low voice, then a second one answering it, then a third, and I couldn't tell you which was which, only that the third one went quiet fast, the way a conversation does when it becomes an argument that people have already had. I lay back on top of the covers with my shoes still on, and my heart doing something undignified. For 23 years, whenever this happened to me, there had been one sleeping mind nearby, and one door to fall through, one weather system, one set of somebody else's memories to stand around in like an idiot until morning, took a piece of me as payment. Tonight there were 3 of them under this roof. 3 doors, all of them identical, and no way on earth for me to choose which one opened. So I did the only reasonable thing, which was to not sleep at all. I sat up, kicked my shoes off, and spread the folder across the desk instead. If I was going to be useless in one direction, I could at least be dangerous in another. August had not been lying about originals. Payroll ledgers with actual pen pressure in them, incident logs with coffee rings, an insurance binder thick enough to stop a door. Nobody hands you paper this real unless they are either honest or extremely confident. I found the first strange thing in about 40 minutes. The gantry maintenance log ran in a neat column of monthly sign-offs going back years, and then in the November before the failure it changed hands. Same form, different handwriting, and the initials went from a looping G to a hard blocky R. Roman Brandt had personally signed off on that crane for 4 straight months. I sat back in the chair that had come from somewhere else and felt my whole theory tilt sideways. Because a man who signs his own name on a machine he knows is failing is not a criminal. He is an idiot. And Roman Brandt had many qualities, but idiot was not on the list. A knock. 2. Actually, spaced apart, polite. It's open. Sawyer came in with a mug in each hand and no coat, in a house that was somehow colder inside than the hearing room. You skipped dinner. I didn't skip it. I declined it. Same amount of not eating, he set one mug down at the corner of the desk, well away from my papers, which I noticed because most people put a drink directly onto whatever you are working on. That's soup. Roman made it. He makes soup when he's angry, And he made a lot tonight, so congratulations. That got a laugh out of me before I could stop it. He didn't sit. He wandered, the way people do in their own houses. And he stopped at the window with his back to me, and the harbor lights put an outline around him. Ask me, I said. Ask you what? Whatever you came up here to ask me, you've been circling since the parking lot. He turned. That scar through his eyebrow caught the lamp. Your brother, Milo, is he all right? Of every question available to that man, it was the one I had no armor for. He works, I said. He goes to his shifts. He eats. He's got the whole rest of his life fine. Every year of it. Birthdays, a girl he dated in high school, the day our mother died, all of it intact and filed where it belongs. I heard my voice go flat and let it. It's one night. One night is gone, and it's the night that would explain the other 10 men. You tell me if that sounds all right. Sawyer was quiet for a second too long. No, he said, it doesn't. That's a strange thing for a defendant to say. I'm not a defendant, I'm a face. He said it without bitterness, like reading a job title off a card. August handles what the family thinks. Roman handles what the family does. I handle what the family looks like, which mostly means I stand at podiums and shake hands and get told things after they've been decided. That sounds like a complaint. It's an alibi, he said, and smiled, and it did not reach anywhere near his eyes. Whatever you're looking for, I probably wasn't in the room. He left. I stared at the door for a while after it closed. The soup was, infuriatingly, excellent. Somewhere past 2 in the morning the house went fully quiet, and that was when the cold started coming through the east wing wall, in a way that heat, which supposedly worked, should not have allowed. I got up to check the radiator. It was warm. The cold was coming from the hallway. I want to be honest about what happened next, because later on people are going to ask me, and I intend to have my story straight. I did not go looking for the 4th floor. I went looking for the source of the draft, which took me out my door, down the east corridor, past 4 rooms that smelled like nobody had opened them since the last century, and around a corner into a stairwell I had not known existed, and the cold was pouring down it. And I stood at the bottom of those stairs in my socks at 2 in the morning, with Roman's voice in my head saying I put you back in your car with my own hands, and I did the math on how much I wanted to know versus how much I wanted to keep my job. The math was not close. The 4th floor was one long room under the roofline, and it was freezing because a window at the far end was open. Snow had come in and dried and come in again on the sill. There were no boxes up there. No safe, no shredder, no filing cabinet, none of the things a person hides. There was a bed made up with clean sheets. A chair beside it, a glass of water on a small table, gone cloudy with dust, a folded blanket at the foot, and a pair of work boots set neatly underneath, toes to the wall, the way a man sets his boots down when he expects to put them back on. The size on the tongue was a 12. My brother wears an 11. Behind me, a floorboard took somebody's weight. I turned around with my heart in my throat, and August Brandt was standing at the top of the stairs in a sweater, with the cuffs pushed up, not blocking the exit, not coming closer, just there. Rule 3, he said. You told me Rule 3 was heat. I told you the East Wing was the only wing with heat that works. Both of those things were true at the same time. He looked past me at the bed, and something moved across his face and was gone again. You're shaking. It's cold. It isn't only that. Don't do that, I said. Don't be perceptive at me at 2 in the morning. I'm not equipped. He crossed the room, and I braced, and he walked past me entirely and pulled the window shut. It stuck. He hit the frame once with the heel of his hand, and it went down. It doesn't stay closed, he said. We've had a man out twice. Whose room is this? August stood with his hand still flat on the window frame, looking out at black water. I want to answer that, he said. I've wanted to answer it for 2 years. Then answer it. If I tell you tonight, you'll write it in your file, and the trust will read it, and it stops being ours. He turned around. In the dark, his face was just his brother's face, and it was not, and I could not have explained the difference to anyone. Stay a week. Do your audit. Ask me again on the 7th day, and I'll tell you everything. Whatever you've found by then, whatever it costs us. You're asking me to sit on evidence. I'm asking you for 6 days, August said, and I have never asked anyone in this house for anything. I should have said no. I had a duty, an order, a brother with a hole where a night used to be. 6 days, I said, and I meant it, right up until I got back to my room, lay down still cold from that stairwell, and fell asleep before I could take my socks off. I was standing on Pier 9, and it was snowing sideways. That is the thing about falling through. There is no doorway, no falling sensation, no polite transition. 1 second you are horizontal in a cold room with your socks on, and the next you are somewhere with your feet on the ground and a full-body certainty that you have been there the entire time. The gantry crane stood over me, lit from below by work lamps, its arm out over the water like something patient. Men were up on the deck platform. I counted without meaning to. 11. I could not see faces. That is normal. Dreams are lazy about faces unless they matter. The snow came in off the lake in long gray sheets, and the whole pier smelled like diesel and cold rope, and somewhere behind me a radio was going with the volume too low to make out words. I turned in a slow circle, because that is all I can do. I don't get to reach for anything. I get to look. A voice above me shouted something that ended in a word I didn't catch, and the wind took it. Then somebody near the base of the crane said, very clearly, "It's the pin," and the whole world stuttered. I have walked a lot of dreams. I know what a bad memory looks like when a mind gets close to it. It goes soft at the corners. It repeats. It hands you the same second twice. This did not do that. This did something I had never once seen. It ran backward 2 steps and started again with the details changed. The snow was still there, but now it was coming straight down. The work lamps were on the other side. The radio was silent, and the men on the platform numbered 10. I counted 3 times. 10. It's the pin, the same voice said, in the same place, in a slightly different order of words that my ear could not pin down, and the crane arm came over, and the sound that followed was not loud. That surprised me most. It was a low grinding, almost apologetic, the sound of a very heavy thing deciding. Then I was on the pier alone, and the snow had stopped entirely, and there was one man standing at the end of the dock with his back to me, and he was wearing boots, and even in a dream I knew the size of them. Milo, I said. He didn't turn around, because he wasn't Milo. Dreams lie about who people are. He was too tall by half a head, and his shoulders were wrong, and when he finally moved, it was not my brother's walk. He stepped off the end of the pier into the water without breaking stride. I woke up so hard, I nearly came off the mattress. Gray light, my own room, socks still on. Somewhere below me a door shut and a truck engine turned over in the yard, and I lay there with my heart slamming and my hands full of nothing, taking inventory the way I always do, which is the ugliest 90 seconds of my life on repeat. Name, Ezra Holt, fine. Address of the apartment on 4th Street, fine. The trust filing codes, all of them, fine. My mother's birthday, fine. The way Milo takes his coffee, fine. Too much sugar, always has. My father's face. I reached for it and there was a shape where it should have been. Not blank, worse than blank. I could tell you he was tall. I could tell you he smelled like motor oil and mint gum, and that he wore a canvas coat with a torn pocket, and I could not have picked him out of 2 men standing in a room. I put my hands over my face and sat very still until the shaking stopped, because that is what you do. You pay and then you get up. Down in the kitchen, Roman was standing at the counter with his back to me, and he was eating cereal out of a mixing bowl like a man who had not been told a normal size existed. "You look terrible," he said, without turning. "You look like a man eating breakfast out of a serving dish, so let's both live with disappointment." He snorted. Actually snorted, and then seemed annoyed with himself about it. I got a mug down. My hands were still not entirely mine, and I made a project of the coffee so he wouldn't see. "Can I ask you something without you throwing me out a window?" "Depends on the question." "You signed the gantry maintenance log. 4 months running, right before it went." "Why?" The spoon stopped. He set the bowl down and turned around and leaned back against the counter with his arms crossed, and I braced for the heat, and it didn't come. What came instead was worse. He looked tired in a way that was much older than 2 years. Because the man who used to sign it stopped being reliable, Roman said, and I wasn't going to put that on paper about him, so I put my own name there instead, and I climbed that gantry myself twice a month, and I checked what I knew how to check, which was cables, brakes, hydraulics, everything a yard boss knows. His jaw worked. I don't know pins. Pins are engineering. There's a man in Cleveland who does the pins, and he comes twice a year, and I signed the sheet that said the whole assembly was inspected, because I inspected the parts I understood, and I let the rest ride. The kitchen was very quiet. Outside, gulls were making their opinions known over the harbor. That's not concealment, I said slowly. That's a confession. It's neither. It's a fact. I've told it to exactly 2 people, and now 3. He picked the bowl back up like the conversation was over, and then, without looking at me, said, 10 men went to the hospital, and I have their names memorized. All 10, in order. You want to know what I do at 4 in the morning when I can't sleep? That's it. 10. Everything in me went cold and level at once. He wasn't lying to me. I had spent 6 years across tables from people who lie for money, and I know the shape of it, and this was not that. Roman Brandt believed there were 10 men on that pier with the same total certainty that I knew there were 11. Which meant one of us was missing a night, and in this house, I was no longer confident it was him. I set my coffee down without drinking any of it. Roman, I need you to say a number for me. He looked at me like I had asked him to sing. What? How many men were on the platform that night? 10. You didn't even think about it. Because I don't have to. He put the bowl in the sink. 10 claims, 10 names, 10 hospital intakes, and I know all of it by heart. Why are you asking me a question you already have the paperwork for? Because the paperwork is what I'm doubting, I said. Humor me. If somebody told you there was an 11th, and he never filed, and there's no medical record, what's your first thought? That somebody's lying to you. He said it flat. No apology in it. Then, after a second, less flat. Or that you're right, and I've been wrong for 2 years, and I'd rather find that out standing up than sitting down. Which is it? I looked at this enormous, furious man who kept 10 names in his head at 4 in the morning and made soup when he was angry, and I made a decision that my supervisor would have physically removed me for. Show me the yard. He drove. The truck smelled like cold metal and coffee, and he took the harbor road faster than the harbor road deserves, and neither of us said anything for a while, which was somehow not uncomfortable. Pier 9 in daylight is smaller than Pier 9 in a dream. That is the first thing that hit me. The new gantry stands where the old one stood, and the concrete has a long seam in it, where they poured a repair, and there were men working 40 feet away who all stopped working when Roman got out of the truck, and then all started again when he lifted 2 fingers. They like you, I said. They're paid by me. Those are different reactions, and you know it. He almost smiled. He walked me out along the deck, pointing at things without softening any of it. This is where the arm came over. This is where 2 men went into the water. This is where a third went through the rail and lived because the rail broke instead of him. He named them as he went, not for drama. He just could not seem to point at a spot without saying who had been standing in it. I stood at the end of the dock, exactly where the tall man in my dream had stepped off, and looked at the water. Was anyone lost in the lake that night? No. You're sure? I dove it myself, Roman said. Twice. In November. He said that the way other men say they parked the car, which meant the man walking off the end of the pier was not a memory. He was something the dreaming mind had put there, and dreams put things in for a reason, even when the reason is stupid. Back at the house, I asked August for the settlement files. He took me down to a cellar room with a light bulb on a chain and pulled the boxes himself, one at a time, and set them on the table in a row, and I noticed the number before I noticed anything else. 11 boxes. You said 10 claims, I said. 10 claims. August pulled the lid off the last one. 10 settlements. This one is correspondence. Everything that came in about the gantry that wasn't a claim. Complaints, press, a letter from a church group, 2 men applying for jobs on the repair crew because they needed the work. His hands were careful with the paper in a way I was starting to find distracting. You may read all of it. I read for 4 hours. My back went to pieces, and my eyes went dry, and I stopped noticing the cold. The 7th box gave me the thing. It was a photocopied intake form from St. Luke's, 1 page, the top corner torn where somebody had pulled it off a clipboard too fast. Male, 26, presenting confusion, and no recall of preceding 12 hours. No head trauma, no substances. Released after observation. The name field was blank. Somebody had gone over it with correction fluid, thoroughly, professionally, and the date underneath was the morning after the gantry failed. Attached with a rusted paperclip was a Brandt estate compensation voucher. No claim number. No settlement reference. Handwritten in the memo line in a looping G that I had seen once already that week on 4 years of maintenance sign-offs were 3 words. For the 11th. I sat with that page in my hand, and the whole thing turned over inside me like a key. Somebody in this family had known there were 11 men, had known it the morning after, had paid one of them, and had done it off the books with correction fluid over the name. And it was not Roman, who counted 10 in his sleep. And it was not August, who had walked me down here and handed me the box. Footsteps on the cellar stairs. I got the page face down under my arm before I even decided to, which tells you something about who I am, and Sawyer came around the corner with his coat on and his keys in his hand and stopped when he saw me. There you are, he looked at the 11 boxes and the mess I had made of them, and something happened around his mouth. You've been down here since noon. I've been down here since I got here, spiritually. August said you skipped lunch too. You're gonna fall over, and then I'll have to explain a fainted auditor to a deputy after all. He came closer, and I stayed exactly where I was with my heart going, because the page under my arm felt like it weighed 9 pounds. What'd you find? Paper. Ezra. That was the first time any of them had used my name, and it landed somewhere I was not braced for. Old letters, I said. A church group thinks the harbor is being punished for something. Sawyer laughed, and I watched his face, and I could not find one single thing wrong with it. He looked at me the way you look at somebody you have decided to be glad about. Then he said, "Come up, it's warmer," and turned to go, and the light on the chain swung a little as he passed it, and I saw the initials stamped in the corner of the voucher pad on the shelf behind him. G. B. Not Sawyer, not August, not Roman. There was a 4th Brandt. I did not follow him up. I stood in that cellar with the light still swinging and did the thing I do, which is put pieces on a table in my head and refuse to move until they sit flat. Roman had told me about the man who used to sign the log, the one who stopped being reliable, the one whose name he would not put on paper. He had said it like a fact about a stranger. He had not said the man's last name, and I had not asked, because I had been too busy being right about something else. There was a voucher pad on that shelf, with GB stamped in the corner and dust on it thick enough to write in. I got it down. 12 pages left in the book. The carbon backing still held the pressure of everything written before it, and I tilted it under the bulb until the ghosts came up. Small amounts, $40, $60, $110, a dozen of them across a year, all in that same looping hand, all made out to men with doc names I half recognized off the payroll ledger. Somebody had been quietly handing out money to injured workers for a long time before there was ever a gantry to blame it on. That was when I heard the cellar door open again, and it was August, and he had the face of a man who had come down there specifically because he had been thinking about it upstairs for an hour. "Sawyer says you found old letters," he said. Sawyer is very charming, and I lied to him. I know. August came down the last 3 steps. You put something under your arm. He didn't see it. I did, from the stairs. I could have run 12 directions. I picked the one with the most speed. Who is G? B. The bulb hummed. Outside the little window at ground level, somebody's tires went past on the gravel. Gideon Brandt, August said. Our father. Your father. He's alive. He put his hand flat on the table like he needed something level. He's upstairs, on the 4th floor, and he has been for 2 years. And the window doesn't stay shut because he opens it. He says the room is too warm. It is 9 degrees outside. Everything in that house reorganized itself around me at once. The clean sheets, the dusty glass of water, the boots set toes to the wall. He's the one who used to sign the maintenance log, I said. Roman took it over because he stopped being reliable. Yes. Roman knows he's sick. Roman knows he was slipping. He does not know how far because I have kept him from knowing, and he is going to take that very badly when he finds out, which he will, tonight, because I am done. August's voice never went up. That was the thing about him. It just got more precise, and the precision was where all the feeling was stored. Our father has good hours. In a good hour, you would sit with him and think he was the sharpest man in Minnesota. In a bad one, he tells me the ore boats are coming in and asks where my mother went, and she has been gone 11 years. And 2 years ago, the night the gantry failed? He was on that pier, August said. I don't know why. He shouldn't have been able to drive. He was there, Ezra, and he came home at 4 in the morning soaking wet, and he has never once been able to tell me a straight thing about it since. I put the voucher pad down because my hands had gone unhelpful. He paid the 11th man, I said. There's an intake form. St. Luke's, the morning after, no name, correction fluid over it. A 26-year-old with no memory of the previous 12 hours and no head injury, attached to a voucher in his handwriting, for the 11th. August closed his eyes. So he knew, I said. Whatever else was wrong with him, he knew there were 11, and he made sure one of them never entered your paperwork. Why? I don't know. August, I don't know. He opened his eyes and looked straight at me, and I believed him, and I hated it. I have asked him, 9 times, maybe more. He gets to a certain point in the story, and he stops, and he says a thing that isn't an answer. What thing? He says, the boy asked me not to. The cellar was very cold, and I was suddenly aware of every inch of the space between us. My brother, I said, does not ask people for things. My brother is 26 years old. He is the kindest person I have ever met, and he could not ask for a raise if the money was already in his hand. I know how old he is, August said it quietly. I read the manifest the night you filed. I have read your brother's name more times than I've read my own. Something moved in my chest that I did not have a filing code for. 6 days? I said. You asked me for 6 days, and you've spent one of them handing me a father you didn't have to hand me. I said I would tell you everything on the 7th. I didn't say I'd enjoy waiting. He straightened his cuffs, and it was the first nervous thing I had ever seen him do. I'm telling Roman tonight, about our father, all of it, and when I do, this house is going to be extremely unpleasant, and I would like you to not be in the middle of it. Absolutely, I'm going to be in the middle of it. I assumed, almost a smile. One condition, do not go up those stairs alone, not because of the rule, because he will not know you, and being frightened by a stranger costs him a day, and he does not have unlimited days. I thought about a man in a cold room asking where his wife went. Okay, I said. We stood there a second too long. He was close enough that I could smell the cedar under the wool, and neither of us moved, and the light bulb swung, and I was the one who broke it, because I am a coward with excellent instincts. Your brother knows, I said, Sawyer, about your father. Of course he knows. Then why did he tell me he's just a face? Why did he stand in my room and swear he's never in the room when anything gets decided? August looked at me, and for the first time since the hearing, he had nothing precise to say. Because that used to be true, he said slowly, until 2 years ago. That's a hell of a sentence to leave lying there. It's the only one I have. August picked up the voucher pad and set it back on the shelf, square to the edge, which I was learning meant he needed his hands doing something. Ask him yourself. He'll tell you a version. Sawyer always tells you a version, and it's never a lie, and it's never the whole thing either. Upstairs, a door banged hard enough to move dust off the ceiling. That'll be Roman, August said. I left him a note. You told your brother about your father in a note? I told him to be in the study at 6. He was already moving. The note is 9 words. I'm not a monster. The study was all dark wood and a fireplace nobody had lit, and Roman was standing in the middle of it with his coat still on, and August walked in and shut the door and did not shut it fast enough to keep me out, because I put my hand on it. "He stays," August said, before Roman could ask. "Why?" "Because he already knows, and because I'd rather you hear it in front of someone who won't let me be gentle about it." So he said it, all of it, in that level voice, and I watched a very large man come apart in slow motion without moving his feet. Roman did not shout. That was the part I was not ready for. He stood there while August explained 2 years of doctor visits and cold rooms and a father who asked about a wife who died 11 years ago, and his hands opened and closed twice, and when he finally spoke, his voice came out sanded down to nothing. "I asked you." "You did. I asked you in the hospital parking lot the week after the crane. I said, 'Is Dad okay? Is something wrong with Dad?' And you said he's tired." Roman's eyes were wet and furious, and he did nothing about either. I signed his name off that log because I thought he was drinking again. 2 years. I let him sit up there thinking I was too busy to come up, and I wasn't busy, August. I was avoiding him because I thought he was drunk. I know. You let me think that about my own father. Yes. Why? Because you would have blown it open, August said. You'd have told the crews. You'd have told the trust, out of honesty, because that's what you are. And the estate would have gone into custodial review, and 1,100 people would have had a very bad winter, a breath. And because he asked me not to, that's the real answer. The first one is just the one I used to sleep. Roman crossed the room. I actually took a step, which was insane, because there was nothing on earth I could have done about Roman Brandt. He got right up in front of his brother and stopped. Then he put his forehead down on August's shoulder, and August stood there holding 190 pounds of yard boss without a word, and I turned around and looked at the unlit fireplace like it was the most interesting thing in Minnesota. 10, Roman said, muffled. I count 10 every night. If he paid an 11th, then I've been counting wrong for 2 years and nobody told me that either. Nobody knew, until him. Roman lifted his head and looked at me over August's shoulder, and I have never in my life been looked at like that. Not with anger, with something so close to hope that it was worse. Then find him, he said. Find the 11th, and I'll open every door in this house myself, and I'll do it in front of the trust with my name on it. I went up to my room after that, because I needed one wall between me and other people's grief. I sat on the bed with the intake form and the manifest and the photocopy of my brother's blank, correction-fluided name, and I tried to think, and the house creaked over my head, and I looked up, and the floor of that room, the one I had been in, was directly above mine. I had been so busy the first night, listening for 3 alphas that I never once counted the ceilings. The east wing sits under the 4th floor. 2 doors down and 1 flight up, from where I fell asleep in my socks, was a bed with a folded blanket at the foot and a man in it who had been on Pier 9. I stopped breathing for a second, because I had assumed, that is the whole ugly truth of it. I had lain there thinking 3 doors, 3 brothers, no way to choose, and I had gone to sleep and fallen through and never once thought about the 4th Brandt I did not know existed. Sideways snow, then straight down. 11 men, then 10. The same voice saying the same thing in an order I could not pin, the whole night running backward 2 steps and starting again with the details changed. That was not a dream contradicting itself. That was a memory coming apart in real time, in the mind of a man losing it a piece at a time, and I had been standing inside it while it happened. I got up and walked to the window and put both hands flat on the cold sill. The tall man at the end of the pier with the wrong shoulders, who was not my brother, who stepped off into the water without breaking stride. A man who came home at 4 in the morning soaking wet. I had paid for that walk with my father's face. I sat down on the floor, not gracefully. I sat down the way you do when your legs stop consulting you, and I laughed once, out loud, in an empty room, because the universe apparently has a sense of humor, and it is not a good one. 2 years ago, a man walked into the lake and came back out and could not say why. 2 years ago, my brother came home and slept for 2 days and woke up without a night. And whatever happened on that pier, both of them are carrying a hole in the exact same shape. and only one of them can still be asked. I got up. I went down the hall and around the corner to that stairwell, and the cold was pouring down it again, because of course the window was open, because he says the room is too warm. I put my foot on the bottom step. Then I took it off, because I had given August my word, and because there was a man up there who would not know my face, and would lose a day over a stranger in his doorway. So I stood at the bottom of somebody else's stairs at 9 o'clock at night, and I said the only thing left. Sawyer. I did not know how long he had been standing behind me in the dark. Yeah, he said, I'm here. I didn't turn around right away. How long? Since the study. Sawyer's voice came from the dark at the end of the hall, not moving closer. I heard the whole thing through the door, which August knows, because August leaves doors unshut on purpose when he wants me to hear something without having to say it to my face. That's an exhausting way to run a family. You have no idea. I turned. He was leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, and the cold from the stairwell was moving past both of us, and there was no charm on him at all. Without it, he looked like his brothers in a way he never had before. You told me you were never in the room, I said. I told you that used to be true. August said the same thing tonight, word for word, almost. That's a thing you two have practiced. That's a thing that's just true. He pushed off the wall. Ask me the question, Ezra. You've been holding it since the cellar, and you're going to hurt yourself. Fine. He wanted it, he could have it. Your father paid an 11th man off the books the morning after the crane, and when your brother asks him why, he says the boy asked me not to. My brother is the 11th man. My brother could not ask a stranger for a napkin. My voice did something I did not authorize. So who asked? Because somebody did, and it wasn't Milo, and your father was in no shape to invent it. Sawyer looked at the floor for a second. I did, he said. The stairwell wind kept coming, and I stood in it and did not feel it. Say the rest. Dad called me at 3 in the morning, not August, me. He said it plainly, no defense in it, which was somehow worse than an excuse. He was at St. Luke's, wet through, and he had a kid with him in the waiting room who couldn't tell the intake nurse what day it was. Your brother had walked off that pier, and Dad went in the water after him and pulled him out, and neither of them could give me a straight account of it, and one of them was 26, and terrified, and the other one was my father, with his coat frozen to him. He jumped. I don't know that. Nobody knows that. He was in the water, and Dad went in, and that's the whole verified sentence. Sawyer's jaw tightened. Your brother kept saying one thing, over and over, in that waiting room. He said, don't put my name on anything. My brother works for the trust. Everything in me went silent. He said it maybe 40 times, Sawyer said. He was scared to death that whatever was wrong with him that night would land on you. So I took the intake form off the clipboard and I put correction fluid on his name in a hospital parking lot with a bottle I bought at a gas station, and I had Dad write the voucher because Dad still had signature authority and I did not. That's my handwriting under the fluid and his in the memo line, and I have thought about it every day for 2 years. You destroyed a medical record. Yes, you buried the only proof there was an 11th man on that pier. I spent 4 months of my life and my entire professional reputation trying to prove a thing you already knew. Yes? Say something that isn't yes. There isn't anything else, Sawyer said. I did it in 20 minutes at 4 in the morning because a scared kid asked me to, and because I have spent my whole life being the one who makes things look fine. That's the job. That's what I'm for. And I have never once been able to decide whether I protected your brother or whether I just did the family thing on reflex and told myself a story about it after. I hit him. Not hard. Open hand. Once. Across the chest. More shove than strike. And he took it without moving an inch, and did not even look surprised. He can't remember, I said, and my voice broke in the middle of it, and I let it. Do you understand what you took? You gave him 20 minutes of protection, and it cost him the whole night, permanently, because there is no record for a doctor to work from, and no timeline, and nothing. He wakes up every day with a hole in him, and you're the reason nobody can help him fill it. I know. He's 26. I know. Don't. I was shaking and furious, and I could not tell how much of it was at him. Don't stand there agreeing with me. Fight me about it, tell me you'd do it again. Sawyer looked at me for a long moment. I'd do it again, he said. That's the honest answer, and you're going to hate it. He asked me for one thing, while he was the most frightened I have ever seen a person, and he asked for you, not for himself. If somebody hands me that at 4 in the morning, I'm going to say yes every single time. His voice finally moved. And then I'd spend 2 years the way I spent these 2, waiting for somebody exactly like you to walk into that hearing room and take it apart. I'm not sorry I did it. I'm sorry it was mine to do. And there it was, 2 people, both right, and no third option anywhere in the building. I put my back against the wall and slid down it and sat on the cold floor of that hallway, and after a second, he came and sat down too, close enough that our shoulders were almost touching, and not quite. He talks about you, Sawyer said quietly. Dad, on the good days, he talks about the boy from the water. He can't hold on to why it matters, but he holds on to that. That's not fair. No. We sat there. Below us, the house made its noises, and above us a window that would not stay shut let the lake into a room where an old man was sleeping through the only conversation that could have explained everything. 7 days, I said. August asked me for 7, and I've got 2 left, and at the end of it I file with the trust or I don't. I know what you have to do. Do you? You have to write it down. He said it without any bitterness at all, every bit of it. The fluid, the voucher, my father's condition, my name at the top. That's what you came here for, and it's the right thing, and I'd think less of you if you flinched. I turned my head and looked at him, and he was already looking at me, and the space between us was maybe 4 inches, and felt like a decision. Then why do you sound relieved? I said. Because I've been waiting 2 years for somebody to make me answer for it, Sawyer said. And it turned out to be you, and you're the only person I'd have wanted it to be. I wrote the report that night. All of it. The correction fluid, the voucher, Gideon Brandt's condition, 4 years of maintenance sign-offs, and Sawyer Wells Brandt's name at the top of the finding, spelled correctly. I also wrote my own name into the second section, under the heading for undisclosed conflicts, and recommended the trust censure me for it. If I was going to burn a house down, I was not going to stand outside it. On the 7th day, I gave it to August 1st, the way I had promised. He read it standing at the kitchen counter for 19 minutes without saying anything. Then he set it down, squared it to the edge, and said, "It's accurate." That's your whole review? You want more? I want you to yell at me. I have adrenaline and nowhere to put it. Then here. He picked up his coat. I'm driving you. If you file it alone, Prager will assume we fought you, and I want the record to show we opened the door. Del Prager read it in that grain office with the dust and the lemon polish, and Roman testified for 2 hours with his own name attached exactly as he had promised, and did not once soften the part where he signed a log for a machine he did not understand. Sawyer took a formal sanction and a bar from estate signature authority for 5 years. The estate paid 11 settlements instead of 10, and reopened the medical file for a 26-year-old man in Duluth with a hole where a knight should have been. I got a written censure in my personnel record and kept my job by 4 votes. Roman waited outside the hearing room afterward with his arms crossed, and when I came out, he handed me a paper bag with a sandwich in it and said, "You didn't eat," and then walked me to my car without another word. And that was the entire conversation, and I have never felt more thoroughly held by anyone in my life. Gideon Brandt had his good hour on a Tuesday. August came and got me. I went up those stairs beside him with my heart in my throat, and Milo came too. Because the doctors had said a familiar face sometimes anchors both people at once. He was sitting in the chair by the window with the blanket over his knees, and he looked at my brother for a long moment, and then his whole face changed. "You're the one from the water," he said. Milo made a sound I had not heard from him in 2 years. It came out of Gideon in pieces over about 40 minutes, and I am not going to pretend it was the whole night, because it was not. He remembered the pin. He remembered shouting about it, and nobody hearing him over the wind. He remembered a young man standing at the end of the pier afterward, with his hands at his sides, And he remembered thinking that boy is going to go in, and going down the dock as fast as an old man goes. You didn't jump, he told my brother. You went down. The deck sheared, and it took you off the edge, and I saw it, son. I was looking right at you. Milo put his face in his hands. 2 years of believing something about yourself that isn't true is its own kind of injury. That was the hour that ended it. I slept in that house one more night, on purpose, in my own room under the 4th floor. I fell through and stood on Pier 9 in sideways snow, and this time I did not try to count anybody. I stood at the end of the dock and watched the deck plate shear and take a man into the water, clean and awful, and exactly as described, and I stayed until the dream let me go. I woke up and did the inventory. The hearing room was gone. Not the outcome, the room. The wobble in the chair, the smell of it, the north door, and the 3 of them coming through it in the same coat. I know it happened. I have the transcript. I cannot get the picture back, and I never will. I told them at breakfast, out loud, all 3 of them, because I was done paying for things in private. I have to explain something, I said, and then you're going to have to describe a day to me for the rest of my life. I told them everything, the 9-year-old, the walks, the price. Roman went completely still. August asked exactly one question, which was whether it hurt, and I said no, which is true and is not the same as harmless. Sawyer got up, walked around the table, and put both hands on my shoulders from behind and just stood there. Then he said, "You wore a gray coat. You were 40 minutes early. You checked every chair in the room, and you thought nobody saw you do it. You saw me do it. I've been watching you since before you knew my name." The custodial remedy order expired on a Friday in April, and I packed my one duffel bag and put it in my car, because I am not a person who stays somewhere by default. I made it 11 miles. I sat in a gas station lot outside Two Harbors with the lake going gray and enormous on my left, and thought about a man who signs his own name on a machine he doesn't understand, rather than write something unkind about his father. About a man who hands you the box that convicts his family. About a man who says, "I'd do it again," and means it, and pays for it anyway. I drove back. Roman was on the steps. Of course he was. "Nothing on the 4th floor," he said, and his voice cracked straight down the middle, and I dropped my bag on the gravel and went up those steps, and he met me halfway. August came out with his cuffs pushed up and stopped dead. He is a man who needs permission for everything, so I gave it to him. I said his name once and he crossed the distance in 3 steps and kissed me like a man setting something square to the edge at last. Sawyer stood in the doorway laughing, and when I finally got to him, he took my face in both hands and said, "Say it out loud, because you're going to want the record." I came back. Louder. I came back, and nobody made me. We keep a notebook now, blue, on the kitchen counter, and in it are the days I have paid for, written down by 3 different hands so that nothing I lose stays lost. The first entry is a hearing room on Superior Street. Everyone in that room expected me to lose. And I did, eventually, in the one way that counted. I would do it again. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed it, you'll definitely love the next one. It's even crazier and more intriguing than you can imagine. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. The next story drops soon.